Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, welcome to Week in Nintendo. Every Saturday I like to go back through the past week's biggest headlines so you can get yourself all caught up on all things Nintendo. If you're new here and you like these weekly news rundowns, make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on everything happening with the channel. And there's quite a bit to go through this week. Some stuff actually happened. So with all that out of the way, let's go through this week's Nintendo news. On Monday, we learned that Nintendo of Japan had very quickly sold through all stock of the brand new Coral Switch Lite, which released on March 20th in Japan, the same date as Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, we're starting to see Nintendo Switch stock shortages around the world, so it'll be interesting to see how quickly the new Coral Switch Lite sells over here when it releases on April 3rd. On Tuesday, we learned that Nintendo of America would be donating 9,500 N95 face masks to local first responders in the Washington area. Apparently, Nintendo had stockpiled these face masks for their own emergency preparedness preparations, but as many of you know, the N95 face masks have come under huge demand with everything happening right now, and since these were just stored away in a stockroom somewhere, Nintendo decided that health professionals could probably benefit from the masks far more than Nintendo employees at this point. So hopefully these masks help the effort somewhat, and good on you, Nintendo. A lot of Wednesday headlines here. We learned that the Nintendo Switch has now outsold the Wii's total lifetime sales in Japan. The Wii, when all was said and done, had sold through 12.75 million units in Japan, but the Switch, now just over 3 years into its lifespan, has sold over 12.8 million units. So really impressive numbers here. I'd say the Switch's hybrid handheld nature certainly helps though, as Japan loves handhelds. We also learned that Animal Crossing New Horizons had sold over 1.88 million copies in Japan in just 3 days, making it the highest first week sales of any Nintendo Switch title so far. Wednesday, we also learned that Nintendo of America would be closing all North American repair facilities due to the ongoing public health crisis. The closure was effective immediately, and an online fax was provided to try and answer customers' questions about current repair orders. New repair requests would be returned to the customer as undeliverable, while existing requests would remain at the facility until it reopens at an undisclosed date. So, until we can put all of this behind us, be extra careful with your Switch. Thursday morning, we got a surprise Nintendo Direct Mini, ending one of the longest droughts in Nintendo Direct history. Now, for the past few weeks, we've been talking about GamesBeat editor Jeff Grubb's rumors regarding these upcoming Directs. He correctly predicted the timing of the recent Indie World Showcase, and he also said we'd be getting a general Nintendo Direct on Thursday, March 26th. And even when no announcement came from Nintendo on Wednesday, Jeff just dug his heels in and said it was still happening, and to many surprise, we woke up Thursday morning to that Nintendo Direct Mini. Now, Jeff has gone on to say that he didn't believe this was going to be a mini Nintendo Direct due to the games he believed would be showcased. So it does seem like maybe Nintendo has held back some of the titles they were planning to show, and judging by the disclaimer at the beginning of the Direct, this is all probably due to uncertainty regarding release date schedules. There was even some speculation immediately following the Direct, as Nintendo's website incorrectly listed new Super Mario Odyssey trailer has arrived, and even though her track record has been somewhat spotty, Emily Rogers has been tweeting about 2020 being a good year to be a plumber. Now, this slip up on Nintendo's website could certainly just be a placeholder left over from around the launch of Super Mario Odyssey, and I think it would be somewhat odd to call the sequel to Super Mario Odyssey simply New Super Mario Odyssey, but I've seen stranger things from Nintendo in the past. So either way, I'd say Nintendo's surprise dropping this Direct and referring to it as a mini was probably done to mitigate fans getting overly hyped, only to be disappointed by no major first-party announcements in a Direct that fans have been clamoring for quite some time. And while this wasn't the most exciting round of Nintendo information we've seen, I do think Nintendo handled the rollout pretty well, and I think there's a certain level of understanding among the public that we're now in unprecedented and uncertain times with nearly every aspect of day-to-day life being affected. Now, with all that out of the way, let's go through what we saw. I'm not going to hit on everything shown in the Direct here, so if you missed it, I'll leave a link to the Nintendo Direct Mini in the description below. To kick things off, we finally got a release date for the upcoming remaster Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which will be arriving on May 29th, 2020. The remastered looks to be a major improvement over the original. The Wii version was already looking pretty dated when it originally released, and don't even get me started on that 3DS port. In addition to the improved visuals, battle and inventory UI have also been overhauled, along with re-recorded music and a new epilogue chapter which will be called Future Connected. I will definitely be grabbing this one as I'm a big Xenoblade fan and a sucker for JRPGs on the Switch. But I do have one complaint here. The North American Special Edition is an absolute joke compared to the UK collector's set. In the States, we'll basically just get the art book and a box to hold it all, while the UK gets a steelbook, the art book, a poster, and a gorgeous vinyl of the game's soundtrack with some really beautiful artwork of the Minato blade on the vinyl itself. I just don't get it. Why has Nintendo of America decided that we just don't deserve the same limited edition treatment in the States? I'm sure there's some reasoning behind it all, but it's really disappointing to see it become a trend lately. I had to get the Link's Awakening UK Special Edition sent over to me from a friend overseas, since there was no way I was missing out on that Game Boy themed steelbook. And I might see if I can try and snag the UK Xenoblade Collector's set too, but with everything going on, that will probably be difficult. 2K will be bringing 3 beloved titles over to the Switch on May 29th as well, with the BioShock Collection, Borderlands Legendary Collection, and XCOM 2 Collection. And while it's nice to see the 2K support here, those who plan on picking any of these up physically should take note that all will require pretty significant downloads in addition to the physical cartridge. We also got our first look at Shin Sekai, an odd-looking underwater 2D exploration game from Capcom, which was immediately available after the Direct. Animal Crossing New Horizons detailed its first seasonal update, which will bring the Bunny Day event to New Horizons from April 1st to April 12th. Players can participate in Easter egg hunts and craft limited time items from the Egg series. It's kind of crazy to think that there might actually be more people participating in Easter egg hunts in Animal Crossing than out in the real world this year. Next, we have Paladin Studios' Good Job, a hilariously charming looking office-themed puzzle game that seems to prioritize speedy completion of tasks over collateral damage. Good Job was also available immediately following the Direct. Ring Fit Adventure announced a free update including 2 new modes, a rhythm game mode with 17 music tracks including tracks from popular Nintendo titles like Jump Up Superstar from Super Mario Odyssey. There will also be a new jogging mode for players who aren't in a battling mood and who feel like enjoying a leisurely jog through the game's varied fields. So even though Ring Fit Adventure is sold out everywhere at the moment, it's nice to see Nintendo continuing to support the game for those that were able to pick up a copy, especially since most of us are unable to venture out to the gym. We also got a closer look at Bravely Default 2, the JRPG follow-up to Square Enix's Bravely Default series on the 3DS. The game looks quite pretty, with some beautiful depth of field effects reminiscent of Octopath Traveler, but I have to say I'm not a big fan of the character design. Not that that's a total deal breaker, I just much prefer Octopath's pixel art design over the very silly looking short-legged chibi look we saw here. No specific release date was given other than 2020, but we do have a demo available now, with Square Enix once again collecting feedback from players before the game's final release. Next up is an announcement that oddly seemed to be a crowd favorite from the Direct: Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, a massive collection of tabletop games and a follow-up from the critically acclaimed Clubhouse Games that came to DS in 2005. The overall presentation looks pretty high quality here, with some nice touchscreen functionality thrown in, some modes that seem to be homages to casual favorites from the Wii era, as well as online functionality for certain games. Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics will be coming to Nintendo Switch on June 5th, 2020. Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy was announced for Nintendo Switch, and again, this was another shadow drop available immediately after the Direct, but another Star Wars announcement that came right after had me far more excited. The Nintendo 64 classic Star Wars Episode 1 Racer will be coming soon to the Nintendo Switch as well. EA's Burnout Paradise Remastered got an announcement for 2020, and although I've never played this one, I am a big fan of arcade racers. It just seems like a lot of Burnout fans would have preferred a different entry from the series for the remaster treatment. So you'll have to let me know in the comments below, is this the right Burnout game to bring over to Switch? Last up, we have Panzer Dragoon Remake, and this one was a big deal for me. I've had my eye on the remake since it was announced, since I'm a huge Sega Saturn fan, and the Panzer Dragoon series was a standout on that console. For those of you who've never played any of the Panzer Dragoon games before, it's a dragon-riding on-rails shooter somewhat similar to Star Fox, that is except for Panzer Dragoon Saga, which took the series in an RPG direction. It's really cool to see this often overlooked series make its way over to Switch, and it was also available for download immediately after the Direct. But I'm holding out for the physical edition from Limited Run Games that pays a beautiful homage to the game's Sega Saturn roots. And that's about it. There were a few other details like expansion pass DLC coming to Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, an announcement that the first fighter in Smash Ultimate's DLC Fighter Pack 2 being a character from ARMS, and we also learned a bit more about the expansion passes coming to Pokemon Sword and Shield this summer. So all in all, nothing too crazy here, but certainly better than nothing. And I think with everything going on, we can all understand projects falling behind or release dates becoming uncertain. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of this mini Direct. Will this hold you over until June when hopefully Nintendo does another Direct, even in the absence of E3? And let me know what game from the mini Direct you were most excited about. But before we go, it's time for 20 years ago today, where we take a look back at what was happening with Nintendo 20 years ago this week. And this week we're taking a quick look at a somewhat overlooked racer that came to the Nintendo 64 on March 27th, 2000, Top Gear Hyperbike. Top Gear Hyperbike was a follow-up to Snowblind Studios' Top Gear Rally on the Nintendo 64, a game I enjoyed quite a bit in my childhood years, and I actually wasn't aware of Top Gear Hyperbike's existence until I took a look back at what came out on the Nintendo 64 around this time. Apparently, this game didn't fare quite as well as its predecessor, suffering from lackluster physics and low-poly character models, as well as quite a few other options to choose from for motorbike racing games at the time. IGN's Aaron Boulding gave the game a 6.1 and said, "Physics and animation are the most important parts of motorbike racers we now know. To overlook or downplay these two parts of your game, even with great ideas elsewhere, is to ignore exactly what fans of the genre are looking for when they walk into their video game retailer. Fortunately for motorbike racing fans, the best is yet to come, and we can tell you that Hyperbike is not it." So let me know if you ever played Top Gear Hyperbike back in the day, or what your favorite motorbike racing game was back then. And if you stuck around through all that and liked what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing. And until next week, have a great weekend, play some video games, and what else are you going to do? Stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.